fifth grade. Happy Tuesday. I'm getting a little fancier today, trying to make this a little more like class. So today is Tuesday, March 31st, 2020. And I just wanted to start with the joke of the day like I normally do with class. So what do you call friends who love math? You ready? You call them algebros. Get it? Like algebra and bros. Algebros. So funny. Okay, I just thought maybe, of course, you missed my cheesy jokes. And wanted to make this distance learning a little more fun. So, we're going to start with week 2, lesson 2, okay, in your packet. For me, it looks like it says page 8 if I'm looking online, so it should be the same for you. Our objective for today is I can determine whole number quotients of whole numbers with up to 4-digit dividends and 2-digit divisors. So that means these problems can have up to 4 numbers on the inside of the house and 2 numbers on the outside of the house. All right, so let's go ahead and look at that daily fluency for today. So this is kind of going back to with bigger numbers, but you kind of start seeing this especially in 3rd grade, that basic fact family, maybe even before 3rd grade, but definitely in 3rd grade. And we're going to complete some of the related fact families, and then it has you creating your own. Okay, so I've written out the first one that you guys had to fill in, the first 2 boxes under number 1. So if you look at the pattern up top, let's just look at the first one. It says 4 times 3 equals 12. Okay, then it looks like it switches around the factors. So now we have 3 times 4 equals 12. And then it's using that opposite operation. So we're using the opposite of multiplication, which is division, to show how they're related. So now we're taking the product and we're saying, okay, now the whole number, we're going to say now 12 divided by 4 is 3. And if 12 divided by 4 is 3, then that also means that 12 divided by 3 is 4. Okay, so looking at that pattern again, this time all they did was, it looks like they made the first factor, they multiplied the first factor by 10 to make it bigger. So now instead of 4 times 3, you have 40 times 3, but it's following that same pattern. 40 times 3 equals 120. 3 times 40 equals 120. 120 divided by 40 equals 3. 120 divided by 3 equals 40. Okay, and then if you look at the last part, again, now they just took the second factor and they multiplied that one by 10. So now we have an even bigger multiplication problem. So 40 times 30 is 1,200. 30 times 40 is 1,200. Then going to that division, 1,200 divided by 40 is 30. And 1,200 divided by 30 is 40. Okay, so now we're going to look at the next one, and you need to fill in the blanks. So if you look there, I see that it says, it gives us blank times blank equals blank. And then underneath it says 6 times 8 equals 48. So if we look back up at our example at the top, it looks like it just flipped the factors. So what you should have at the beginning, or at the very top, is 8 times 6 equals 48. Then you got 6 times 8 equals 48. Okay, now we're moving down to that division. So I see that it already gave you 48 divided by 6 equals 8. So above that, we would just do the opposite. So 48 divided by 8 equals 6. Okay. If you were unable to get these, I want you to go ahead and pause this video and try and fill in the rest. If you were confused, that's okay, but now I want you to pause and try to do it on your own because I'm just going to be giving you the answers from here on out. All right. The next one says 80 times 6 equals 480. All right. Underneath, you should have written 6 times 80 equals 480. Then it says 480 divided by 80 equals 6. And underneath that, you should have written 480 divided by 6 equals 80. Okay. Now on the next one, you would again create your own, and following that same pattern. I see that right before we had done 80 times 6 at the top. So now we're just going to multiply that second factor by 10. So now that's going to give us 80 times 60. All right. And when you did 80 times 60, you should have gotten 4,800. So again, you have that 80 times 60 equals 4,800. Underneath, you would have 60 times 80 equals 4,800. All right, then underneath, you would have 4,800 divided by, 4,800 divided by 800 equals 600. and then, which one did it? 4,800 divided by 600 equals 800. Did I say that right? I don't remember which one I just said. Sorry, guys. But again, following that same pattern. All right. And then scroll down, and I want you to finish those 2 and 3. And again, you're following that same pattern. So I'm not going to go over that one. All right. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, call, text from your parents' phone, from your phone, whatever it is. So yeah, that's just a little review. This is also going to be the problem of the day that I post on Instagram. I'm going to try and post those fluency problems. So be on the lookout for that. Okay, moving down to the daily task. So I'm not going to lie. When I looked at this one at first, I was like, what? I was a little, the way I solved it first actually is kind of connected to the objective, but I used a little bit different of a strategy. So then when I looked back at my objective before I started teaching, or before I started recording this video, I was like, oh wait, I should solve it this way, because that connects it more exactly to the objective. The way I did was kind of related, but still a little different. But that just goes to show that, again, there are so many ways to solve these problems, and it's really just about the way that your brain works. So one of the ways that you could have solved it is the way that I'm going to explain now, which is the one that really connects back to that objective of the 4-digit dividends and the 2-digit divisors. So it says, what time was it 2011 minutes after the beginning of January 1st, 2011? Explain your work below. Okay, so the first thing that makes this so tricky is that there are a few things that you kind of have to know in order to be able to start figuring this out, right? So the first thing is, when it says the beginning of January 1st, 2011, you have to know of what that means. Like, you have to know what time each day starts at. So technically, each day starts at 12 o'clock a.m., which is also known as midnight, right? That is the beginning of each new day. And so that's one thing we have to know, right? So each day starts at midnight, okay? We also have to know how many minutes are there in a day? If it's asking me to figure out what time it was 2011 minutes after the beginning of the new year, well, how many minutes are in a day? And so, that's not something that, if you don't have a computer near you to Google it, we can use math to figure it out. So if I want to know how many minutes are in a day, well, I'm going to go back to what I know about time and, days. So I don't know how many minutes are in a day off the top of my head, but I do know that there are some other things that I know, right? So I know that in one day, there is 24 hours. All right. So I know that. I'm just going to write down a list of things I know if you want to write this down. When I was solving this problem first, I actually did write all this down. I have a lot of my work here at the bottom of my other whiteboard that I'm looking at. So one day equals 24 hours. Okay. I also know that in 1 hour, because I'm talking about minutes, I know that in 1 hour, there are 60 minutes. All right. Now, what I don't know off the top of my head, but I don't remember, is how many minutes are in a day. And that's what I don't know, but it would be really helpful to know because, while I'm solving this problem. So in order to figure that out, I'm going to say, okay, there are 60 minutes in an hour, and there are 24 hours in a day. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to use multiplication to figure out, well, how many minutes are there in one day? So I'm going to say 24 hours times 60, all right? 0 times 4 is 0. 0 times 2 is 0. All right, now I'm going to start multiplying in the tens place, which means I have to record in the tens place. So I'm going to put a 0 in the ones place. 6 times 4 is 24. I'm going to put a small 2 and a big 4. All right, and then 6 times 2 is 12, plus 2, 13, 14. So I'm going to put a big 1 and a big 4 because there's nothing left to multiply. When I add, I'm going to get 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 4 is 4. 4 plus 0 is 4. And 1 plus 0 is 1. 1, 2, 3, comma. I have 1,440. So that means in one day, there are 1,440 minutes. Okay? So, there are 1,440 minutes. All right? Now, that is useful to me. Okay? So, there are multiple ways that you could go about solving this problem from here, right? So, I want to know, okay, what time was it after 2011 minutes passed after the beginning of the year, right? So I'm going to think about a couple different ways that I could solve this. The first way is I could say, okay, I have 2011 minutes, and I want to know how many hours that is. How many hours are in 2011 minutes? All right, so I'm going to say 2011 minutes divided by 60 minutes, because that's going to tell me how many hours are in 2011 minutes. Okay? So now I'm going to ask myself, does 60 go into 2? No. Does 60 go into 20? No. Does 60 go into 201? Yes. All right, and how many times? Again, to figure this out, I don't know this off the top of my head, so I did trial and error. So I did, okay, 60 times 2, 60 times 3, 60 times 4, all right? So when I did that, when I figured it out, I figured out that 60 goes into 201 3 times. So notice that I put my 3 over that 1 because I'm dividing into 201 now. All right, and then I'm going to keep going through my process of long division. So 3 times 60 is going to give me 180. And now I'm going to subtract. 1 minus 0 is 1. I can't take 8 from 0, so I'm going to go over to the hundreds place and borrow. 2 becomes a 1, and the 0 becomes a 10 when I regroup. 10 minus 8 is 2. So now I have 21, but the next step after I subtract is to bring down my next number. So I'm going to bring down this 1, and now I have 60 goes into 211. All right, same thing. I'm going to try that trial and error. I know that 60 times 3 is 180. So to see if I can go again, if you didn't do this before, I'm going to say, okay, well, what's 60 times 4? 4 times 0 is 0. 4 times 6 is 24. So that means it's 240. So that's too much. So that means, once again, my 60 can go into 211 3 times. So I'm going to put my 3 up top. And then I'm going to multiply. 3 times 60 is 180. I already know that. It's right here. When I subtract, 1 minus 0 is 1. And then, again, I can't take 8 from 1. So I'm going to borrow from the hundreds place. This 2 becomes a 1. And I'm going to regroup and make this 1 an 11. 11 minus 8 is 3. And I have nothing left to bring down, which means I have a remainder of 31. So now I'm going to do that thing that we've talked about before in class about interpreting that remainder. What does that mean? So remember, when I divided 2011 minutes divided by 60, I was trying to see how many hours it is. How many hours are in 2011 minutes? So I can see that there are 33 hours with this left over. So I want you to think, remember, I was dividing minutes. So if there are 33 total hours, my remainder is going to represent the minutes that are left over. So in 2011 minutes, there are 33 hours and 31 minutes left. Okay? So now I need to know, all right, that's how much time needs to pass so that I can figure out my answer. All right? So it wants to know, what time was it after 33 hours and 31 minutes into the new year? All right? 33 hours and 31 minutes. Okay? Now, I want you to go back and remember, each day starts at midnight. Okay? So, how many hours are there in a day? There are 24. Okay? So I know I have way more than one day here because I have 33 hours. So that means I'm going to count from, okay, I'm starting at midnight on January 1st at 12 a.m., right? And now I'm going to add 24 hours, and I'm kind of going to use that arrow method that kind of goes back to 3rd grade, but it's just to show my work. However you showed it is okay. So I'm going to say, okay, if I add 24 hours to that, I'm going to now be at 12 a.m. I'm going to be at midnight on January 2nd, right? So now I've gotten all the way from midnight on January 1st, all right, where I said, Happy New Year. And then it's January 1st. And now I'm going to go to the next night. Now I'm at a new day. It's January 2nd now at midnight. Okay? So that's 24 hours. So if I had 33 hours and I used 24 of them, I'm going to say, okay, how many more do I have left? Well, what is 33 minus 24? If you go over and figure that out or have it off the top of your head, that's going to leave you with 9 hours left over. Okay? So now I'm at 12 a.m. I'm going to add 9 more hours, right? Because that's going to get me to 33. So if I go from 12 a.m. to 9 and count 9 more hours, I'm going to go, okay, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m., okay? So now it is 9 o'clock in the morning, okay? And I've spent my 33 hours. But now I have to add on those minutes, all right? I still have 31 minutes left over. So if it's 9 o'clock a.m. plus the 31 minutes, that's going to give me a time of 9:31 a.m. Okay, I'm just going to leave that there for a second so you can see. All right. So it was 9:31 a.m., 2011 minutes after the beginning of January 1st. Now, that was a very tricky problem. Like I said, I worked it out. I sat here for about 5 minutes before I went on to this video. And then I actually started recording and then I had to stop because I was like, wait, I think I'm explaining this wrong. So that was one way. If you're not interested in the quick explanation of the other way that I did it, you can skip past this part. But what I actually did the first time I solved this was I also said, okay, so we figured these things out, right? And we figured out that in a day there was 1,440 minutes, right? So then I said, okay, well, if there's 1,440 minutes in a day, I'm going to subtract that from the 2011 minutes and see how much I have left over. So I subtracted that, and then I got 571 minutes left over. And I was like, okay, well, if I have 571 minutes now, I want to know how much time is left, because now I knew, okay, I passed one day, so I knew it was January 2nd with those 1,440 minutes. Now I'm on a new day, and I want to know how many hours I have left. So then I divided 571 right here, divided by 60, and I still got, okay, 9 hours and 31 minutes. So then I was like, oh, well, after midnight then, on January 2nd, I have to go forward 9 hours and 31 minutes. And so that still got me to that 9:31 a.m. So if you solved it that way is totally fine too. The reason that I did it the other way this time to teach you was because I noticed that this was actually just a 3-digit dividend and a 2-digit divisor. And since the objective really says it wanted that 4-digit dividend and the 2-digit divisor, I was like, oh, okay. So, but again, multiple ways to solve a problem, as long as you can get to the right answer and you can understand how you got there. That's the more important part. I would rather you not have gotten it right, but now you're like, oh, I get it. I understand the process, the steps, so that you'll remember next time. Okay, so make sure you write your answer on the line in clear sentences. And then your exit ticket is pretty quick today. So let me go ahead and erase this. It says, what is 960 divided by 4? Solve using the standard algorithm. All right, so you guys have been awesome at long division. Truthfully, and I've told you guys this before, this is one of a lot of times, my 5th graders in the past have been really excellent at the 3-digit by 3-digit multiplication, but when you get to long division, they struggle, which is just common. Long division is very hard. When I learned it as a kid, I still remember I was pretty great at math, and that was still the hardest thing for me. But you guys have always been really awesome at long division and have picked up on it very quickly. So good for you. It'll really help you as you move on into the upper grades. Okay, so 960 divided by 4. Again, we remember that the steps to long division are divide, multiply, subtract, and bring down. Think back to that music video that I had you guys listen to that I got from another teacher friend. The steps along division. I always think of that now. So we're going to start at the beginning. We're going to divide. How many times does 4 go into 9? 4 goes into 9 2 times. And remember, you should already have this done. This should be you checking your work, okay? 4 times 2 is 8. Then after I multiply, I subtract. When I subtract, I get 9 minus 8 is 1. All right, after I subtract, I bring down. So I'm going to bring down my 6. And then I start all the way up at the beginning, okay? So I divide. 4 goes into 16 how many times? It goes in 4 times, making sure I'm lining up my numbers up top. 4 times 4 is 16. After I multiply, I subtract, and I get 0. And then I bring down my last number, bring down my 0. Now remember, after you bring that number down, even if it's a 0, you still have to go back to the top. 4 goes into 0 times. 0 times 4 is 0. And when I subtract, I get 0. So my answer is 240. All right, if you want to check your answer, which I love, remember, you take your quotient and you multiply it by your divisor. So I'm going to say, okay, 240 times 4. Can you see that? Okay. 4 times 0 is 0. 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9. And you should have gotten your dividend if you are correct. All right. So that's it for today. I guess since it gave you such a kind of tricky problem, it was shorter. A few things I just want to make a comment about real quick before I go, especially for 5th grade. Remember, there is only so much that I can do for you while I'm at my house. So I'm trying to reach you through these videos, through Instagram, by texting and calling your parents and those kind of things. But a lot of the accountability is still kind of on you. So you have to make that choice of, you know, am I going to take what my teachers are offering me and what my parents are offering me and all of those things and do the best I can? Or, you know, am I not? I know that it can be kind of tempting to maybe, you know, skip over your work sometimes or not do it. Someone on my Instagram the other day was like, well, you can't hold me accountable. You're right. It is very hard to hold kids accountable right now. But every time I get that work, every time I, you know, get pictures from you of your work, that is going towards your grade and it's giving you really good credit towards your grade. And ultimately, you know, it's just helping you in the long run. So you guys are kids, but you're also getting to that age where you do get to decide for yourself, you know. Do you want to be ready for 6th grade? This is not fair to anyone. I never thought something like this would happen in my lifetime. I just didn't expect it. It kind of came out of nowhere. So I totally get that. And, you know, I can imagine how scary it is and how confusing it is to not be in school. It's been hard for me to keep myself on a schedule, but at the end of the day, you have to use the tools that are given to you and do the best you can. Does that mean you're going to be perfect every single day? No. Are we expecting you to be perfect every single day? No. And you know that that's never an expectation for me. So I'm just asking you to try the problems of the day. You know, I'm not saying don't go outside. I'm not saying don't go have fun. Don't take video game breaks. Don't watch some TV. I'm doing all those things too. But set some time aside for your academics every day. This video is a little over 20 minutes, which means if you were doing all of this with me, it's taking you less than 30 minutes to do math. And now you can go do your reading and, you know, the other subjects that you have. But you have all day. All right. I really just want to encourage you guys to not give up on this. Keep pushing yourself. Keep doing those challenge problems of the day because it really is going to help you in the long run. And I just want you to be successful. All right. I'm done talking. Have a great day. Get outside, get some exercise if you can, and reach out to me if you have any questions. All right. See you guys tomorrow. Bye.